Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdcast Steve, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
Anarchist Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
I'm good, man. I can't complain. I'm just exhausted from last week, like the rest of the country. I think you
So,
know.
so uh, did you say it ruined you?
Yeah, yeah. You guys talked about runes. Could use some runes to empower me. This week we're talking about ruins, and I feel like a ruin. Getting old sucks.
Then the amount of times that you sit there and you click that refresh page just to see if it can give you that slightest little bit of more information.
Yeah,
Uh, I think this is like we've talked before, both on and off the air about how very unpolitical I am, and
yeah.
what have you. I think I've been attached to, and done more with this election than every other presidential election that I've been alive for combined.
So it's funny. Like earlier today, we talked about the cipher game a little bit, right? And someone asked like if you and Megan's
Yeah,
characters were a political statement with the red and blue. I'm like, Ted's not really very political at all.
I was there and saw that comment on the side.
Yeah.
It honestly, I said I wanted to be a blue spider monkey person, and Megan's like, I'm gonna be red. And I don't know whether I was contemplating a name, but once the jockeying of characters starting together happened, it's like, oh well, if I'm red, then you're blue. I'm like, I it works for me.
Done, done. We just needed someone else to take on the moniker of purple. And then we would have been all set.
Well, we did have pink for a little while
Well, that's true.
before
Right?
it merged with a cat.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And Steven's character Goggles is powered by pink power.
Yes.
So strange, mysterious pink powers. But there's that as well. But this is not a political session. This is a the ruins
Yeah.
session.
So, I don't know whether you did any pregame homework, coming in with what to talk about, but when I think about ruins, I think about pretty much like the core of what D&D, is or started with, of going into these unexplored, unknown places and, seeing what's there, whether it's to
Yeah.
gather information, whether it's to find treasure, whether it's just, for, that sake of adventure. And it's really easy to get all three pillars of D&D into a ruin. You know,
It, it truly is. And like before we delve into that a little deeper, I actually went a little broader, right? Like
Sure.
I was like, ruins have always been huge in the not just the game but the genre, right? But
Mhm.
to a certain extent, like the genre feeds the game feeds the genre. So,
Yes.
but I kind of look towards the beginning and like Erebor from The Hobbit, man, like Smog's lair. That is like probably one of the first like ruins I was really introduced to. And then later on, Lord of the Rings, like the Mines of Moria really stand out from the books. But then with the movies even more so, they really made that place come alive, right? Forgotten Realms from the very beginning, Myth Drannor has been huge, part of the realms. And then also, the Icewind Dale trilogies were all about reclaiming, lost kingdoms that had fallen in the ruins, right? Um,
In fact.
yeah. And then we've got Greyhawk, right? Castle Greyhawk itself is just a huge dungeon that adventurers would return to time and time again. And then in Eberron, to me, there's tons in Eberron, but there's two that really stand out. Zendrick is just full of ruins from the previous age of giants, and then you also have the ruin of Seer, the Moorlands, this huge magical catastrophe that happened that no one even knows what happened. So it's like a whole city plus a whole kingdom is essentially ruins, right? So yeah, I would say ruins kind of have a lot to do with the game that we play, and really kind of have left their mark. Now, I know like modern gamers tend to do a lot is the stories are a lot more narrative. So, maybe these places aren't as prevalent as they used to be, but there's definitely a deep rooted history in not only the game, but the genre itself.
100% agree with you. You've got a lot more broader knowledge when it comes to the D&D verse. You've read far more D&D novels than I have. Not that I haven't put away a solid 100 or more.
Yeah.
It's still, there's a lot out there. I know you've touched a lot in Dragonlance, which I haven't.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some good runes from Dragonlance, and I just couldn't. And my Google foo is really failing me.
What
And
about the ones with the gully dwarves? I know there was a book where the two characters went and meet the gully dwarves. So I know
Flint the King is like a book that's like highly it involves gully dwarves, but I don't really know if you can even call that ruins or it's just where they live and they're just kind of
I, I, I,
a
didn't, I didn't
degenerate
know.
race.
It was a crapshoot. Doug says, Zach Saroth. I don't know
Yeah, I should have just called Doug an ass. I should have known better.
if
Like I read those books when I was a teenager, so I don't know. I mean, it's fair to say going on 30 years ago.
that's quite some time ago.
Yeah, and my memory is not that great either. And the late 80s, early 90s were kind of rough for me. On that note, New Jersey has legalized marijuana for recreational use. So, woohoo!
Doug was reminding me of that just the other night.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, maybe you need to unwind, Ted. Although I know like a lot of people think I'm a stoner, and I'm just not anymore. It's been a long, long time. I haven't
Yeah,
gotten high in like 20 years at least. Um,
the long hair, the facial hair,
I,
and I'm as straight laced as I can be. So
yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny. My birthday one year at Gen Con, someone hands me a cigarette pack with a joint, and I was like, "How are you giving me this here? You might as well hold on, keep it." Oh,
it's funny. People. We fall into stereotypes, and sometimes that's okay. I don't get offended when people offer, or when people want, but you know,
yeah.
uh,
Although I've recommended your sister should try it for medicinal purposes because she's got a kind of like a neuromuscular disease, maybe. Not sure which, but it's in the MS family. And it's like, it might help because she's always got pain and numbness and stuff.
that's always a shame to hear that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Luckily, it was her, not me, because she's way tougher than I am. Like, I'd be whining and like everyone else would just want to off themselves so they didn't have to hear me anymore, or off me. As a
uh,
case, she's way tougher than I am.
but my sister is a badass. So
um, yeah, she could definitely delve some runes. So, yeah, so yeah, I started just looking at like these places that we would explore, and I know the in our early days, we used a lot of ruins in our adventures. Like one of the more fun ones that I remember doing is when I really started kind of getting bored with standard fantasy because we'd been doing it for so long, and I was like,
uh,
and it was Fantasy Flight books, and they had something in Lairs was like a series, and it was pretty good. And they had like a steampunk one. So,
okay.
like you guys, I had you guys adventuring through a gnomish, gnomish ruins, where there was leftover, steam powered armor and stuff that undead goblins were inhabiting. And yeah,
Undead goblins in gnomish steam powered armor.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't even remember which group that was for. I just remember making that lair and you guys
I
just
if I had to play a guess, that would have to be the Shattered Realm game.
maybe, but it might have predated that. But no, yeah,
Well,
no, I think it was that one. I think that was the group where you guys kind of like picked characters to play, like out of a bunch of pre-mades.
yeah, well, that
How it
was the
started.
start of that game,
Yeah.
and just about everybody died, and we got to make new characters thereafter.
Everyone except for one player. I think at least one player had the original character from the start.
Yeah, I don't remember who. I don't know, it was Ryan or Jeremy.
It was Jeremy's. It was Jeremy's because he was like the plot started developing around that character.
And I can recall, we've talked about it on the channel of like, approaching, his city with, untold wealth and more magic items than we should have legitimately been able to carry. And like he was supposed to challenge for the throne. And at that moment is when that game fell apart.
Yeah, like I think I was going to reveal like the head of his house was actually a vampire lord. There was some. I had some plans there, and that was just another game that fell apart. It
so
went
so
on for a while.
so many things, so many awesome adventures that are just like on pause, and it's like, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
But
We've gotten better at that, though. I must say.
I would agree.
You know what?
Yeah,
It's. I think I attributed it to picking an ending, like pick an end, right? Like when
yes.
as a GM, you're like, I said I'm going to run 12 sessions. I'm going to run 12 sessions, and then, and then we decide from there what we want to do. That seems to have worked pretty well.
With fifth edition, I've been running stuff with the cast crew, and we're uh basically in what, a week and a half, 11 days, whatever.
Mhm.
um I'm going to finish up season 4, which I think technically season 3 and season 4 have been like fully encompassed stories.
Yeah,
uh, so each of them are a campaign. I ran, the first, level 1 to level 20 with the Narcitis game, which that was a slog, and fantastic and fun the entire time. But that was a mighty adventure for myself. I know we're still one session away from your game, but you did run, that group from 1 to 20.
yeah. It's frozen in
Um,
limbo.
and like so many other things, frozen in limbo. But you did do the Scarlet Sisterhood game, which I totally screwed up and thought it went to like 69, 70 episodes, and I got to episode 66, and it's like, oh, that's the end. Well, crap.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm now watching Ingest Quest, and I'm on episode 4, so I'll be done that before too long.
Yeah. Are you gonna go back since you're like revisiting our ones? Are you gonna go back to the other skies?
I was in that one, so I don't really feel I need to watch the game that I was in. I feel that
Yeah.
would be weird.
Well, to me, just watching games is weird anyway. So I don't know. I don't know how you guys do this. So
So
if you're in it or not, that matters. I do like it as a DM sometimes because if you're like, oh, I need a refresher or figure something out, the ability to go back and find something has been cool.
that is
Um,
that is priceless to be able to go back and like, what did I say here? I can't ask the players because then they might suspect something.
yeah.
But if I've already got access to the information,
Well, you think in the one game you run, you also have Kurt. Like
yes,
that's amazing because he takes
uh,
great notes.
he does take great notes. And the great part is I have that as a tool to be able to then say, oh, what did they feel was important enough to write down? Okay, great. These are the things that I need to make sure, I follow through on, because apparently it's important enough to them. So I can keep those things going. Oh, they didn't pick up on this thing that I said subtly, or they didn't pick up on this clue that I put out there. Okay.
So
I'll let those sit on the side.
so, so this like trip down memory lane has got me thinking a little bit because it's making me think about the different things that we've run at our table and the way we use runes. And the great pet part about runes for the dungeon master, it is a chance for you to tell a story and add to the narrative in a way you might not be able to do without info dumping on your players, right? You can tell a story with those runes. Like you guys needed something. I think you guys needed something from a particular runes. I think you went there for a purpose. I mean, we haven't played that game in a while, but in the game you referenced when you guys met up with with the kobolds and you needed to travel through their realm. It's because you were going to a specific set of runes. Um, and I don't remember if it was by happenstance or if you were there for a specific purpose. Like I said, it's been a couple years. But once you got into those runes, what you realized were they were made by Dragonborn, and Dragonborn haven't been in this realm in a long time. And also there was definitely some references to Dragonborn and kobolds together, which made some of our Dragonborn in the group feel very uncomfortable about those particular relationships. Like, because like different players in the group started pondering, did the Dragonborn evolve from kobolds, or did they somehow work together? And why don't Dragonborn have tails? So, like, these were the big questions that came up just from discovering this new location with with runes in it. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think ruins are something where you've got the ability to do things as is, keep things even keeled and play your typical games of D&D, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it's also a chance for you to get to flip the script. What is it that your players are used to? Dave has done this to me before, and it's like, okay, Ted's a bloodthirsty maniac when it comes to his characters. As I'm always playing martial characters, always wanting to get into combat. And the one session he's like, nah, that ain't gonna happen. There's no combat tonight, and it was driving me flipping mad. But with a ruin, you easily can do those kinds of things. You want to test your players out and see how they handle puzzles or riddles. If they want to get into investigation and lore, it's an easy way to extract those kinds of information. Imagine, a tapestry, that they're, not, you could use a tapestry, but over years that might be faded. But imagine a painting, or a mosaic, something that's put up there that's going to stand the test of time, and it depicts a scene that isn't possible in today's climate, whether it's races that don't get along working together, whether it's a landscape that doesn't match anything on any kind of map. You've got the ability to put out clues to show what the world used to be, and if players decide to bite on that, then it could lead down a story that they hadn't even considered. It really is a chance that if you put things out there, it's a great place to throw lots of clues and see what they pick up on. Again, I just talked about finishing the Scarlet Sisterhood, and Dave said in the when they were doing a Q&A at the end of that session, of Dave just throws out lots of breadcrumbs, and whatever people pick up, that's what he's going to write his material on, or that's what he's going to focus his little bit of DM prep that the two of us kind of do, on. And that's fantastic, and that's a great tip for anybody. But from, the ruins perspective, it's easy to do that there because it can be a little bit of an info dump. It can be, what do you feel like looking at? What do you feel like looking for? And as I said, all aspects, all three pillars of D&D can be done in a ruin. So whatever it is that you want, you can get it in there.
Think about the implications for later social encounters as well, right? Like a little bit, we kind of delved a little bit in my game with the Dragonborn and the Kobold relationship, and how it made Falkor, Brian's character Falkor, feel really uncomfortable about that relationship because his character's a very noble-esque, hoity-toity, kind of person, that had a lot of belief in their birthright, right? Yep. But another great example of that would be, the old Planet of the Apes movie, right?
Right.
When you get to the end, the final climatic scene, and this like dirty secret of the fact that the apes used to just be animals, and men would use them as for entertainment, right? And when the general, like, I don't remember the characters' names, I'm terrible with all that stuff, but when the gorilla general discovers that, he like loses it, and then they're like, we have to, like, that was one of the reveals, and it was like, we have to make sure apes never know about this and humans never know about this. this because it's like their dirty secret, right?
Right.
But then then there's another reveal, right, where they find the main humans and characters in it find the Statue of Liberty destroyed, and they realize we nuked ourselves. We finally did it, right? And that was like another reveal. So it's like you can use these locations to pull back the
Sorry.
I lived to ruin spoilers
30, 40 years ago.
For a movie that's probably like practically unwatchable for this generation, right? But yeah, you can use these things to create great spoilers to ruin everything for people, or these peel back moments in your campaign where you finally get to reveal this thing as a GM that you came up with and you thought you were so clever for coming up with, but you can't tell anybody because it'll ruin it. And you've been waiting all this time. Like these are kind of the ways to do it, and they can be kind of like slow burn reveals that the players get to uncover as they go along. It's not like some dissertation. Like I've been in games where GMs are like super proud of the world and they want to tell you all about it, and they do, and I'm like, dude, it's a one shot. I mean, it's fantastic and all, but you're kind of holding me hostage here. It's not cool.
And using your example of Planet of the Apes, yeah, you could use that kind of stuff, but peeling that down to what that interaction is, you could literally put, as Dave did with kobolds typically being the aggressor, you could have a race of normally hostile creatures go against type, be in this ruin, and be able to have that as your social. We filmed a video talking about lizard folk, as not your typical lizard folk, and you can do that with just about anything. But imagine putting that race in place, and the first aggressive action is more on the player side, and you've got to be able to see how these players react or how these characters react, especially if you pick a race that might have a more linked past with one of the characters in the party. Test those those stereotypes, or test those aggressive moments, and see if you've got this ability to change that character's opinion. It's always fun to give characters the chance to have growth. And if you can't move past these background elements that you put in for a character, you're missing part of what this game has. So it's an easy way of doing that.
You just sent out like a huge ruin
Spoiler?
location.
Well, what do you mean?
To the last winner of the giveaways we do, the monthly giveaways.
Oh
right?
yeah, yes, the Rapanathuk.
Yeah, I keep having to leading you to you say, because I can never say those words for some reason. They just don't come out of my mouth.
Where is my copy?
Yeah, and that's just a giant dungeon that are ruins.
Rapanathuk, from the awesome people over at Frog God. I just sent this mighty massive tome across the ocean. So I think the winner was Justin. I've got the paper.
What is the RSVP on that?
MSRP is $99.99.
So it costs almost as much to ship it as it does to buy it.
Yes.
When we shipped it, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's 660 pages. It was almost $80 to get it shipped to England, but our fans are worth it. So
yeah. So, and if you go to the website, in one of the tabs, there's instructions for entering our contest, where you can do the Malin thing, or if you happen to be a patron, you just automatically get entered in every month. So when you go to conventions, they print out one of the levels that you get to play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like this just massive sprawling dungeon. I've seen the images of it. I mean, I haven't got to see it in person yet. Maybe someday when the end times finally end, that's got to be pretty cool to see. I think they have every. I think they have all the people that die in there sign something too. So like they have like all the death tally.
I think
So
like that would be something to be like, all right, hey, I got to be a part of this, live or die. It's cool.
yeah. Now you you had been running you run the Chaos Crew and you had run them through a bunch of RPG Crate adventures. Were there any cool ruins in there?
So I mean, there were a lot of cool little dungeons and mini dungeons. Nothing is jumping out, but I mean, at this point in time, we're like 40 plus
Yeah.
sessions
Well,
in.
I just asked because I'm just wondering, like modern design, are people using like other locations and not necessarily using ruins as that
Well,
dungeon
I mean,
backdrop?
there's been dungeons around lava flows. There's been a number of mage towers to explore. They've been all over the Underdark. There's been I think there's been a couple of things that were extra planar.
Yeah.
I've actually got what we have like 42 to 45 uh sheets. No, I guess 100 to 100, 140 to 150 sheets in a binder over there,
Oh
uh
wow.
full of these things. Well, every month it was three
Yeah.
sheets of information, on heavy cardstock, glossy coating with all of the fanfare, and then the lines of stats across the bottom, so there wasn't a huge amount of versatility.
Hmm.
So like I had to be a little creative there to give them some cooler actions. But I think he moved away and did like extra Patreon content to be able to put in some more detailed stat blocks and that kind of stuff. So he's definitely up the game since he first started. But it's a lot of cool locations, but like nothing specific that was coming to mind beyond those generalities that I've said, because like I said, I ran it for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, even in our own games, I feel like the ruin has kind of fallen away a little bit as our styles got more narrative
Mm-hmm.
because we're not doing as much dungeon crawling. Like I said, I know in I did the one set of ruins, and then I don't know, you guys had found those tomb chambers. I
Oh
don't know
God.
if that actually counts or not.
Well, I just a few weeks ago completed Fang of the Night, Heart of the Night Fang Spire. I
Yeah.
I think that counts. As a vampire dude in the bottom of that one, everything seemed you know um, long forgotten and destroyed.
So I think I don't in your game. I don't think we really did ruins. I'm trying to think if I put any in the Scarlet Sisterhood. I don't really think there were many in there either, if any at all. You just watched through it. You probably know better than I do.
So I mean, the underneath of Rylor, where they found Stanley,
Yeah,
could be ruins if you want to go into that
because
vein.
his lair was actually an ancient prison. Yeah,
Yeah, so like that definitely
there was
speaks
like a
to
piece of a ruin for that whole campaign.
um I like Joe's idea about ruins inside a dragon turtle. Dragon turtles can be pretty massive, but I wouldn't necessarily want to get swallowed by one. So like maybe a
That's a dungeon,
legendary.
right? So ruins can be a dungeon, but a dungeon does not have to be ruins.
Correct.
Like
I was
anything
still
can be a dungeon.
I was commenting on his design, not
Yeah.
necessarily the tie-in. So like the idea behind ruins is not just the dungeon, as Dave says. It's more things that have been lost and forgotten. Things that as Doug says, forgotten oasis.
Yeah.
Um, it's things that are beyond the typical mortal knowledge at this point in time. You have to carve your way through it, and if there happens to be current denizens of said ruins, they are not the original inhabitants. Those people who used to live there are long forgotten. And we're talking, beyond Elven, knowledge. So you like thousands of years old is what I would expect, something to classify as a ruin in
Yeah,
typical.
I mean, in the D&D sense, usually a ruins is made by someone. The ruins are, from a past civilization, and generally when you're exploring them now, it is all new descendants or someone who took it over afterwards, or even caused the downfall or ruin of the original, um, you know, structure, whatever it was before. Yeah, and that's like even the Mines of Moria, right? It's inhibited by goblins and a Belrog. It used to be the dwarves. Most ruins are just the dwarves delve too deep and then horrible things come out. I think is like part of it. Step one, have dwarves make something. Step two, have them dig deep. Step three, the monsters profit. I don't know.
It's true, but like there's no reason why you can't, jump on those tropes, buy into the things that this hobby love. And
Yeah,
like if there are times that it's great if you're going to think outside the box, but there are times where you go in a direction that people aren't going to, follow, and they might not see your connection. And if you've gone too wonky, too to the side, that they might not enjoy what you've got going on. So you want to be a little bit careful with it. You know.
so the DMG's got like a great section for kind of exploring these kind of things, like dungeons specifically, right? What was the dungeon originally intended for?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that will lead you down the direction of it's some kind of ruins of something or other, and now you have the new thing in there, and that's kind of the problem, right? And with ruins, like it could be very easy, like you're just there to loot and pillage artifacts and treasures from that ancient age, or maybe you're trying to restore it in the case, like in the case of Brunar Battlehammer with his lost homelands, right? I'm sure we'll get another trilogy somewhere where he's going to reclaim another one from the grave or something. Why stop at two? You got to get the hat trick of lost strongholds.
What came before Gauntlgrim?
Yeah, so like I said before, it's just it is a cool way to add things back into your game, and even like the treasure or loot there, kind of like plundering or pillaging from there, could very well be reveals for your campaign, or like they discover something somewhere else, and when like they do the research on it, whether it's a sword, a scroll, a mug, a ring, and they can trace the origins of that item back to this ancient civilization. Maybe that's enough for the players to go, oh well, if that came from this mythical place that may be real or may not be real, then this is proof, right? So now we can go search for it, and this is like the link, and then you can kind of set them on the path to find these lost runes and dungeons to delve and plunder. But at the same time, you can be using it to reveal information about the campaign world that they didn't know before. Maybe even tying it to some of the players themselves, depending on what kind of backgrounds they have, what kind of stories they have crafted, or their desire to be linked to the past.
Absolutely. But you mentioned pillage, and you brought up the Patreon giveaway. So before since we're past the halfway point, I'm going to share some things that have recently come into the Nerdarchy domain here.
The vault.
The vault, if
Open
you will.
the vault.
And most of what I'm about to share is going to go on the giveaway shelf. But from our friends over at War at Christmas Village, we've had them on the on the live chat a couple of times. But we got some fantasy snowmen miniatures. There's 8 of them here, I think. Yeah, 8 of them, 2 different sculpts. So this is probably going to get added into a Christmas giveaway. Either I'm going to toss it in with the books that I announced last week, or we'll give it away with the January loot But eight cool minis. They were pretty easy to paint. I've already got some, so I figured, I'm gonna send them that way. And then just today, I got a massive stack from our friends over at Kobold Press. We've already talked, numerous times on the channel about, we love Kobold. We have them on, the live chat last week, I think, and
Mhm.
we've got some more kobolds that are, being on the docket in the future. I was actually speaking with one today to get them on the schedule for next month. But we've got the Warlock Grimoire 1 and 2.
Ooh,
These are pretty cool. I'm going to hold up all three of these together. But this is the Tome of Beasts 2, the Pawns and the Lairs for said book. I showed off last week the Deep Magic because we were talking about runes.
yeah.
This is a fabulous book. I backed it on Kickstarter, so I've got my copy,
It's a
back
thick
here on
book,
the
man.
shelf.
That's a thick book.
It's a great book. 700 new spells for 5th edition, beyond everything else that's in it. 19 divine domains, 13 new wizard specialties, 6 new sorcerer's origins, 3 otherworldly patrons for warlocks, expanded treatments for familiars and other wizardly servants, and more.
I wonder if they reworked the one we didn't like.
I don't remember which one we didn't like, but I'm certain they probably did. It's a lot of fantastic stuff. And then last but certainly not least, Empire of Ghouls. That is another one that I've already got my copy of.
Yeah.
So, like I said, most of this stuff is going to be going on the giveaway shelf over here. So be on the lookout. 2021, we'll have some cool kobold stuff to give away.
Yeah, I mean, if you look through the channel, we did all the deep magic. I think we reviewed all the deep magics, and I want to say there were like 24 or something.
There was a lot, and there was a lot of
literally, like there was like 24 of them, and there was like one we didn't like, and that is I would say that's a success, right? That's pretty good. And even it wasn't like we didn't like the whole thing. We just didn't like the particular subclass in there.
I've stated before, I was madly in love with the Void Mage.
Yeah.
All of that stuff was awesome. So much so that Dave is like, all right, I'm gonna tempt your very goody cleric with some of these void magic abilities.
I will use Ted's weakness against his character.
And it's like, all right.
Doug was on the void train for a while too, hardcore.
Some
cool stuff.
I'm watching Ingest Quest, and Megan's character is a void warlock. So
yeah,
it all comes full circle.
Nice. That is one I should probably go back and watch. Doug had a really good crew for that, and some interesting characters.
There's a lot of great characters there. There's a lot of good, symmetry, and we were fortunate enough to not only have people that we know and love personally, but we were able to totally able to bring on Ben from Puffin Forest. I just was totally blanking on his name.
Oh, yeah.
An hour ago, I was watching.
Most people don't know, but we had Puffin Forest before anybody else. We also revealed his face before anyone else. And Doug did a freaking awesome job with that. Like, I had looked at some of it, but I hadn't watched it all the way through, and just the different things I heard from that game just sounds like a blast. And the pitch that Doug had put out for his players was fantastic, and it was for a while rated the best cooking RPG D&D show on the internet.
It's got a lot of views
in space.
It's got a lot of views on the channel for a gameplay. So I was pretty shocked. And
yeah,
I'm impressed with all of them. I think they all have done a great job. I mean, I'm only on the 4th episode.
Is it? There's only like 12, right?
Yeah.
Is that what they did? 12
episodes. And going back to what we said before, if you set this is how long the adventure is, you've got an easier time of working with it, because you've got start with the end in mind. Very very important GM tip. So
I have to confess, I don't know how I'm going to wrap up the game I'm running, and I think tomorrow is the halfway mark.
Oh, are we up to session 6 already? Wow.
Yeah, time flies when you're having
Man,
fun.
uh, that's scary for me because I think I'm next on the docket, and I think they're still asking for a more solid pitch on what my idea is,
Uh,
and I've seen some things, and I mean, literally, I was inspired by the live chat from earlier today about him having his I can't even remember what he called his mage ball.
oh yeah.
But
Did he just call it like D&D ball or battle ball?
no,
Uh,
it's definitely not Battle Ball. Definitely wasn't D&D Ball. Um,
yeah.
anyway, I don't want to derail.
It sounds like a
Uh,
lot of fun, and he also invited Nerdarchy because he has 3 players come on,
okay,
and we've been invited. He's like, I can get
okay.
you. I can get you a third person if you need one. I'm like, but if I can, I'd like to grab like a whole crew from a place.
Well, we happen to have Nerdator Doug, so
We do our content director, if he's interested, and if he's not, we can go into the staff writer bench and definitely produce a third player if need be. But so the idea is like it's 2 60-minute halves to the game with a halftime show in the middle, which sounds hilarious. And there's all kinds of different rules. I don't know if you were there when he was talking about how the game works itself.
yeah. Every time you score a goal, a wave of like dispel magic goes through.
Yeah,
The goal post changes to one of
location
the
and
12 spaces, and he just literally rolls a d12.
show up with a fifth level character. So that sounds like it could be fun.
Yeah, there's definitely things to look at, and do you go in and you know make a character that's going to be fun, or do you go in making a character
Character
that's
to
like,
win.
I'm here to win. I want to beat the home team. Like,
Yeah, both of them are kind of fun if you think about it. It's like, but like, it's what kind of fun do you want to have? Like the
right.
fun of the building the challenging character to overcome the event, or do the character that's going to be fun to play and uh I don't know, be ridiculous. I do like
I
ridiculous.
mean, being ridiculous has its fun, and I've definitely moved along, evolved, whatever you want to call it, in my gaming experience, that it's not always about winning. It's not always about the treasure, the combat, what have you. It's about the experience, and what kind of fun can you have at the table. Characters can die. That's okay. It's just a memory. Characters don't have to be the victors. What kind of story does that tell? Like, you create these fun arcs and you see what happens. So
So Joe's got us covered in the chat. Arcana Ball.
thank you, Joe.
Yeah, so that sounds like a lot of fun.
I would absolutely be down. Don't want to sign up for a whole nother you know campaign arc, but for a one shot.
Yeah,
And the amount of enthusiasm that guy had on the chat today, everything he said just was like, all right, this guy's going to be a good GM. So
yeah. The D&D TikTok scene is lit, man. They're like they got that, they all have that young energy to them. I think even if they're not young, but it must be like they must be siphoning it off from the TikTok audience. So TikTok is one of my new like dirty pleasure, guilty pleasures, not dirty. And it's just cool to see D&D content done in a different way, because like your videos are a minute, right? So like you can't do it like the way we do it or the way you'll find on YouTube. So and a lot of them are entertaining instead of just like I guess fungification like we do. So this is another way of doing it.
yeah, I mean, I haven't explored TikTok yet. It's been around for a little while now, but I only have so much time to dedicate to exploring
Anything.
outside the
Yeah.
things that I do. So and I got to admit, there is definitely a fear of, well, if I try something new, what if I get involved? What is that going to do? What am I going to cut out of my regular routine,
Yeah,
add something else in? So
it is
it's
tough.
dangerous.
Uh, we pushed Joe over the edge today. He made his TikTok. I got a bunch of TikTokers coming up in the near future. Um, yeah, so I'd also it's just like different kind of creators over there. So it's nice, to add some diversity in and get some different voices
Of
into the
course. I
mix.
mean, all the love, all the shares. We gotta represent all of them, don't you?
I think so. I think it's not a bad idea. So in the games that you've run, do any like the ruins kind of stick out to you? Like this was a super success, or this is how I was able to use this.
Well, the only thing that really leaps out to me, um, are you talking about as that I ran?
Yeah, as a
Oh
DM.
man, this is where I kind of dropped the ball. I don't really feel like in the stuff that I've created that I've really gone and explored a lot of the things of the past. Um, because I feel like that requires me to know more about the lore of the world.
Mm,
And in our current iteration, um, there was like we are really just making a lot of stuff up, and hopefully the stuff that I come up with and the stuff you come up with don't butt heads and go against each other. uh
yeah.
if
I
i
don't
if
worry
i
about that stuff too much, man. Like I figure we're playing games, having fun, and then if we actually turn around and turn it into some kind of nerdicky product, we'll hammer it out there. We'll take it to the mat, whatever it takes. We'll make it
I
work.
I'm unfortunately, like I worry about that stuff, and like every once in a while, it still bothers me that you and I have a different picture of the arrangement of Griffin Gath, Crathing
Yeah.
Gulch, and Carshapathan. Uh, it boggles my mind. I mean, I
Well, that's
literally
funny
had
because like the other people that were involved had different arrangements in their mind too. So it's like none of us had the same one. So I wouldn't have let it bother you at all. Right?
um, if I leap back, uh, throughout previous games, I recall that there was a cool ruins that I did. I made a really cool villain. Do you remember the incident that you guys had to get on the boat to travel, and we had the whole player on player violence,
Yeah, I
near
vaguely remember
violence?
that game. We're going back a
Well,
long way.
yeah. Well, I remember actually doing the work and creating
Yeah.
that place that you were going to, and I felt, while the out of game antics probably had a much bigger memory than the actual place you explored. Um, I think it was well done there. And then in a game that you were not a part of, and I brought up before, basically my mental game,
Mhm.
my Tribe of One game that I ran in college. They definitely explored some
Wait, that's
places.
when Ted had his side group,
Well, I
or
mean, at
maybe
that
we
point,
were the side group. I don't know.
at that point in time, it was there were whatever, like I was gaming in several different groups at a time. Um, you
Ted was
know,
very polygamorous in his early years.
well, I mean, it was like when I was at college, we gamed Saturday night. That was that. But then, if I wasn't working and there were some other games going on at college, I would get a part of. I was involved in a couple different Rift superhero games at college. There were a couple of other games that were there. There's the Iron Hulk game. There was my Tribe of One game. There was a couple others that wound up happening as well. But that Tribe of One, they explored, this world where everything that was left was these 13 cities that were in a ring around this central location. And at one point in time, they explored, that central location because it was Lost to the Ages. So it was definitely a lot of fun, and because combat wasn't so you know time intensive, we really were able to get into a lot of the exploration and info dumping it as you were, and it was only whatever the players had an interest in exploring, and therefore it was a lot of fun to kind of either come up with an advance when I knew that they were going there, or when I was working on my own and coming up with stuff, or sometimes a lot of it was just totally pulling it out of my butt when they came up, when they like asked this question. Okay, here's the answer. I ran one game in that world. It didn't matter what I had to say because it was going to go in one ear and out the other for most of them.
So, couple things. One, Dungeon Class is in the house. Guns of the Great. How about Alien Spaceship Ruin, like Expedition Barrier Peaks? Which, yeah, that's great because that also ruins like that as the players kind of like siphon through that and try and figure that out. I did actually use the spaceship as well in my game. I totally forgot about that one. But that totally would fall, a derelict ship would totally fall under those classifications of ruins. It's great because it creates a lot of questions, for the players to then maybe want to try and answer. So if you were to run that adventure, what do the characters want to do after you introduce this technology into the game? And do they want to figure out more about it? Are they carrying it on them? Does somebody come for that stuff? Right. In that case, your ruins can be a lot more fresh and maybe not as ancient as we typically think of them as. In my game, there was a ship that was buried, and then like an earthquake happened or something that disturbed it, and it turned out it was like a prison ship that released this like kaiju type monster that was imprisoned in it, and the players were like, oh no, we should go after the monster. So they left the ruins and they started chasing it, and they just couldn't catch it. And so they kind of gave up, and then they went back to the ship, and they found that like there was the way to kind of stop it in the ship, right, to shut it down. But not before it created more ruins in our world.
It destroyed Rylor. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? But as some of my players have said already, it was kind of a shitty place to begin with. So some say it's not necessarily a bad thing. But that was like one of the games I pitched too. Like the game we're playing now, I was like, one of the ideas was the players could be adventurers that delve in and out of the ruins of Rylor, trying to like recapture some of the lost artifacts and loot it. Maybe try and drive off some of the monsters that now inhabit it. So yeah.
After watching Scarlet Sisterhood and re-envisioning what happened there, I am totally on board for when this campaign is over, whenever that is, of going down that road. I would be on 100%.
Yeah, I kind of like threw that out there as an option because it kind of harkened back to like an older style of play that we haven't explored in a long time.
Yeah.
But not only that, I also felt like that style of play through a more modern way of gaming, a more story and narrative driven game, could be a lot of fun, because even though I didn't do like a lot of work for it, when I threw the pitch out there, I'm like, oh man, they could be competing with rival adventuring groups. Some of them might be on the up and up and honorable. Some of them may not be. Some of them may be just as bad as the monsters they encounter in Rylor, and these could be foils. Maybe they don't necessarily have to have conflicts with them that end in violence, but there's still like tension there between them, because maybe you guys are competing over the same things. Maybe, one group or the other group is a little bit on the shady side. Heck, the players might be the ones on the shady side. So you can have some, tensions and animosities, and different dynamics than just like your typical delve. And, especially if there was like kind of organizations that sprung up around it that would sanction these delves and kind of like almost create this like quarantined off area to, one, try and keep things from getting out, which that was the other thing. Things would occasionally get out, so you could kind of have, your adventures in Rylor bleed out to wherever your quote unquote safe haven is. Or, and maybe those organizations would, kind of dictate how you're allowed to go in, what you could do, and like uh, basically political intrigues to go along with it. So it's like, I think I can spin a lot of different things with this idea of doing a dungeon delve as the campaign, and it's something we haven't really explored that much, especially within the last decade or so, right? So
Right. Right.
I felt like we could just definitely do it different and better. And also, I will say that you did introduce a significant ruin in your Gryffindor game that we never explored. I don't know if it was because you put it there and we just didn't do it, or if it was very, very, very optional. And that was, there was these ruins beneath Gryffindor, and that's why the blood cultists were so drawn to it, because of this repository of knowledge and power. But it was also guarded by a powerful guardian, which was like a vampire lord, that almost murdered one of our players, because most of us were like, he might be a bad guy, and he also seems like he can kick our ass. And he's not doing bad guy stuff right now. So I think we're going to let it slide. Even Uthengar, who's kind of a stickler for the rules, was like, we can probably let this one slide. He's not doing evil guy stuff right now.
So, this, every once in a while, this whole thing gets brought up, and it's been brought up now from multiple angles. The whole, thing about the hideout, the whole thing about undead, now the whole thing about it, it being ruins. There literally was, a bastion of power that was there. And because you guys decided not to explore further, you didn't want to delve deeper or use this place as a base, I didn't really write further than that. But there was power, there was, energy there that, the followers of Anarchitas were trying to get to, and when the orc general made the pact with Thalon Leafblade, it was basically like, all right, when we come back, I'm gonna go get my base built elsewhere, but when I come back, you're gonna need to get me access here. And obviously by the time he came back, Thalon was gone. But there was power that he was trying to get access to, and there was going to be more links to the overall story. There were things that
Yeah, I don't remember if it was like a complex or an actual city.
It was a complex.
Yeah.
There was a handful of places that could have been excavated further, if I recollect. If I recall correctly, there were some places that the tunnels had collapsed. You had gone downstairs, and there was like a sigil on the ground, and that is where this radiant vampire lord, pretty much was at all times. And he was tasked with guarding it. I mean, it was technically undead, but he was technically like a being of positive, vampirism or positive energy. I used the vampire lord stat block, so therefore when Bart detected undead, it was obviously yes. But he didn't have necrotic powers. He had radiant, and he did not require drinking of blood. He was sustained through his connection with the divine, but he was beyond living at that point in time. So
Happens to the best of us. I think with the addition of Eberron, you probably have access to some undead that might not be evil. Like the Karnathi undead, they're still evil. But you also had the what were they called? The unliving, the elves. And in there you might actually find some undeads that are actually good. Like they'd probably be a good substitution.
Okay.
If they have the right kind, or at least to give you idea of what that might look like. Yeah, we have some neutral good undead, undying counselor, undying soldier. So the counselor, is a CR10. So if you were to crank them up, they have a
Right.
radiant touch. They might actually.
As long as it still fills that role of
Yeah.
it is undead and it's using radiant energy, that's going to fulfill the niche of what I'm looking for that particular character, and you know everything else is just kind of moot.
Yeah.
You know, it's necessary in my opinion that you want to have, and I've now brought it up 2 or 3 times. Like there are times that you need to take that traditional monster and flip it, turn it on its side, and make people think about things in different ways, because you can't always give, oh, here's this thing that's right out of the book.
Yeah.
It's
So
described exactly the same.
so in some ways, basics of the game from TikTok is my hero. Jeremiah was on the channel. He was one of our early TikTokers that we had on, and he has one of his TikToks is speaking about necromancy, and he's like, while necromancy itself may not always be evil, necromancers most certainly are. So that I thank him for that quote, and I love it because yes, you cannot create evil monsters and retain your goodness, in my opinion.
Right. But
With
when you're talking about unique monsters,
yeah,
that are there for a purpose that is beyond themselves, they're taking on a mission. They are unique. They are there for a specific cause that is different than those who use the power to call forth evil creatures. Hey, I'm just summoning imps. I'm
yeah,
not a bad guy.
yeah.
What are the imps going to do? Oh, they're going to terrorize the town.
Or make contracts for greater demons, and yeah, I'm very big on like, if you do something and there's unintended consequences, but it happened because you did the thing, you're still responsible. You still did that. But anyway, that's for a completely different video. And people are probably tired of hearing me rant about that. It's my thing. We're past the hour mark, which flew by tonight.
As they usually do.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about runes a little bit here and there, so hopefully we hit the sweet spot for that for you fine nerds out there. Tomorrow night we'll be back with another Cypher System game. You guys get to see how things go with us my players trying to help reestablish and recreate New Manhattan, which is built upon the ruins of Old Manhattan, essentially. And of course,
Goggles, Griggs, red and blue.
And then of course we got the daily live chat going every day during the week at noon. I'm actually taking Thanksgiving off though.
Oh, I was going to ask that question.
I did book someone, and they're like, "I'll do it," but that's Thanksgiving, and I was like, "It's 2020. What is that? What is Thanksgiving?" And then I was like, "Yeah, I'll move you to the next week." And then thanks for bringing that up. So now I just blocked it out as Thanksgiving. So it'll just be me and the turkey instead. But
so I guess until next time.
Until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.